What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cult of Recreationalism podcast. I'm one of your hosts today, Nathan Morris. We've also got Sean Lake, and on the show today, we have Matt Chan.
Hello, everybody.
Matt, I got a little intro I wrote up, and I want you to add to it or tell me I was wrong. All right, so Matt is a husband. He's a firefighter. He's the Titan Games Season 2 champion. He's a climber, mountain biker. He has 4 top 10 finishes at the CrossFit Games. He's the co-founder of Train for the Win with his wife, Cherie, and he is a dog dad to Murray.
That is factual, each of those. Yep. I think the recreation has been the biggest thing for me in the last little bit. So some of that stuff is in the past, but absolutely, positively, I'm proud of all of it.
And on that note, the recreation side obviously is always a big conversation for us. Yet somehow, after talking about it for 3 years straight, we still haven't gone touring yet together. But
I know. I think it's just a matter of time making it happen. I honestly need to make it out to the Tahoe area, which I know is a little closer for you. But that's always been high on the list because I've never skied Tahoe. I've only been there in the summer.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So the backcountry access is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can do so much in resort too. But it's just the access points are plentiful. That's actually my April bucket list. I was talking to my wife about this because we just had kids spring break in Utah. I mean, you can't get much better than that. We went out for Easter Sunday. It snowed about 18 inches at Powder Mountain. Then that same storm snowed about another 18 inches at Snowbird. So we did 2 days at Powder Mountain, 2 days at Snowbird. Then it got super warm. We flew home. And then we sponsored an event at Brighton, Utah this weekend. And Brighton is one of those ski resorts that you just have all the side access to. So it's inbounds side country. So you if you can't hike for it, you're not going to get to it. But we're talking 15-minute little hikes, nothing too crazy. But then you get access to these wide open terrain areas, and you have to have a peeps shovel probe. The ski patrol will check you on these gates going out, but it's all inbounds. And it is just, it's neat. And so Tahoe has a lot of that where you can just start split boarding from literally right on the side of the road, and you get access to these peaks that are phenomenal.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, in Colorado, it's pretty similar. Most of the mountain passes have some skiing, not all of them, obviously, but the one that I ski the most is Berthoud Pass, which is, as you're on your way over to Winter Park Resort, that's an old, believe it or not, it's used to be a ski area, so it's got some ski cuts on it, but it's what I refer to as just side country skiing. If you go a little further, the peaks get bigger, and so is the rest of the terrain, and it's a little bit more fun, but you can tour 45 minutes, get a lap in, and head home. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty neat. Now, for those who are on the uninitiated, what we're talking about is earning your turns, where you're actually hiking up the mountain, mostly using your ski equipment or your snowboard equipment as your uphill vehicle. So you're not using snowshoes. You're putting skins, which is basically a traction pad on the bottom of your skis to walk up the hill. And it is a hell of a workout. When did you get into skiing, and then when did you transition to start getting into the backcountry?
1997 was the first year that I skied. A friend of mine went out west and spent a spring break at a couple of different resorts, Copper Mountain in Winter Park. I'm sorry, in Colorado. We went to Winter Park after that, and I just caught the bug right away. And I spent every single Christmas break and spring break at Winter Park after that, and I worked cooking pizzas, and then they would give you a pass. So I think I worked 3 out of the 7 days or 10 days that I'd be there, and the other days I'd get out and ski and stuff like that. And quickly after that, I graduated and moved to Winter Park because I liked it so much, and within the year started backcountry skiing, and it was, I look back on it now that I know the difference, and incredibly unsafe what I was doing. It was absolutely clueless.
The shit we got away with in the late 90s and 2000s is unbelievable that more people just didn't have carnage. It's wild.
Well, how we have so many people looking after us, in Colorado, it's the CAI which is like the Avalanche Information Center that puts out daily forecasts and, tells you which aspects are safe to see and which aspects are not. The avalanche safety equipment is beyond what I even ever thought it would be, with the avalanche airbags and obviously these unbelievably light shovels and beacons and probes and all that stuff. So, back in the day, I was doing what you're saying, and I had a pair of snowshoes and a snowboard on my back, and I'd hike up and ski down, and luckily nothing ever happened. But that was like 2001. That was the first year I was backcountry skiing.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's great. That's early in back then. It's funny because I'll never forget owning was it the baby blue Peeps that had the little earpiece that you could put in your ear to hear it beeping, and
oh yeah,
and that was like cutting edge technology back
they were
then.
like bricks then too.
Oh yeah, they weren't quite as low profile as today's equipment, but I mean that's awesome. So you grew up. Where'd you go to school?
Western Illinois University on kind of like the western plains of Illinois.
Okay, and was that home or like
No,
you're from the Midwest?
Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but the ski bug, I mean, it's not like you've got phenomenal access to skiing there.
No, I had like honestly, like it was just I went with a friend. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna go visit my aunt. She lives in Denver area. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And when we were kind of like driving out, 16-hour drive, we started talking like it'd be cool to go skiing if you want to go skiing. And then I think both of us kind of caught the bug on that first trip. And he and I skied together for a number of years. He stayed in Chicago, so he still comes out from time to time. And yeah, I especially after that trip, I'd never done so much outdoors that was high speed and exciting. Like I've gone fishing, I did a lot of bike riding and stuff like that. In with they lived in Illinois, but that adventure just man, it just lit the wick because
it goes up, yeah.
It just got more and more fun, and you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and the further you go, the more you learn. It's just like, man, there is a lot of world out there that most people don't see, and it's pretty cool to see it.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you are in God's country. I always give you a hard time because I tend to go to Utah for my powder searches. And of course, you live in Denver. Like you got Winter Park right there. Like Winter Park is an absolutely stellar resort. And it's funny because I have an employee who is born and raised from Winter Park. He's a 22-year-old kid, just graduated from college. And I know his dad because one of my other buddies from town who owns a CrossFit gym or had owned one in San Diego, he did his entire ski world in Winter Park. And I'm like, I have all these data points to Winter Park.
Yeah.
And then when I was in college, my freshman year, I did my spring break, and a buddy of mine's mom and dad lived in Denver. So we went to Denver. We drove up from New Mexico where I was in college, hung out there for a week, and the closest main resort that we could get access to was Winter Park Mary Jane.
Yep.
So I'll never forget going to Mary Jane on like a Sims Blade 160, and like they let snowboarders, snowboard back there. It was in like 1990, and we're just like, oh, this is amazing. This is the best ever.
Yeah. Yeah, believe it or not, Shree and I actually got married at the base of the Mary Jane.
No kidding.
And we're kind of eternally tied to that resort, even though, there's definitely better resorts all over the world, really. But, it's just one of those things that's kind of ingrained in our DNA here in Colorado now. So it's home to us as far as like ski resorts go.
Hands down. I actually couldn't agree more with that. It still has that feel. As much development is going in there, it still has that Winter Park kind of earthy, vibe to it, which I hope they never lose, despite the whole icon, presence, which a lot of people are concerned with. I love the access it gives to getting folks outdoors, and that adventure of like what's right around the corner is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And
one of the things that's cool for the Denverites is like, every weekend they run this thing called the ski train, which is just an Amtrak train that starts in Denver at Union Station, and it rolls up to Winter Park and it drops people off right there at the lift. and then it drives everybody home at 4:30 p.m. And you miss the train, you're staying the night. You know, that's
Don't miss the train.
yeah. So
I've
it's
heard of
okay.
the ski train. I
Yeah,
mean, it's got to be some giant party on there of people just getting excited if it snowed a little bit and like
yeah,
getting up on
exactly.
the hill.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Have you
not
done
cheap.
this?
It's a cool way to do it.
Have you done it, Matt? Because I live in Denver too, and I've never done it.
I've never done the miles.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, every time I'm driving up 70 in, on Floyd Hill and I'm sitting there
Yeah.
in traffic for 2 hours, I wish I would have taken it.
Yeah. I have Icon also, so I wasn't up at Winter Park. I'm glad I don't have to deal with the tunnel, like going out to like Keystone and Breck and all that. But
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do the train, and I've just never done it. So
Yeah, I looked out the other day. I think I could be wrong on this. I think it was 240 round trip. So it's a little pricey.
Mhm.
But like you're not driving and you can just kind of chill on the way,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a highlight. Like when you're just in the passenger seat, I'm always the one driving and like getting to the hill. And like this past weekend at Brighton, it was like definitely one of those sketchy roads. It's a 17-mile canyon up there, so we're like, okay, pay attention.
Yeah.
And we rolled into the parking lot, and apparently like some bus got sideways on the access road, and there was people like trying to jump off the bus to like, thumb down, thumbs out to get other people to give them a ride up. Just total carnage. I'm so glad we missed it. I'm like, yeah, train sounds real nice. You're probably not going to deal with a lot of that stuff.
Exactly.
All right. So now on the extended theme of, and I'm guessing a lot of folks that are going to listen to this don't know this part of your life unless they're tuning into your social media right now, as far as like getting out and riding bikes and skiing in the backcountry and the things that you and I are really kind of connected over. Tell me about a chapter about living in an RV full time.
I was gonna ask that one. Dang it, Sean.
Yeah, 2013. Let's see. So it kind of started in 2012. I took second place in the 2012 CrossFit Games, and we had decided to take a leave of absence from the fire department. So I had time to do this, and basically, we had owned the gym. We worked for CrossFit Incorporated. I was a firefighter, and kind of when I achieved the goal of taking second place, which was kind of my focus for that year, it felt really good, and we wanted to do something different to kind of like mix it up a little bit. And we decided we went on this climbing trip down to the South Platte, which is, a front range climbing area. We decided that on the drive home, we're like, man, we should just do this, for a year and just see how it goes. And we ended up on the way home kind of making plans to buy an RV of some sort, either rent yourself a house and go out for a year and just experience kind of North America. And that's what we ended up doing. So for the better part of 2023, we were in the Western US, from, Palm Springs all the way to Vancouver, kind of like that stretch. And it was interesting because we were still working for CrossFit Incorporated. So we had to be at certain airports on certain dates to fly out. Yeah. Well, other than that, we really didn't have anywhere to be, and you're just learning about the U.S. I mean, it was pretty cool. It went to a lot of national parks, did a lot of climbing, a lot of mountain biking, and it was a learning experience, and it was also a lot of fun. But there's some things I would do differently, if I were to do it again, which I'd love to.
Well, so now saying that, I mean, this is 11 years ago when you're running that, right? 2013.
2013, yeah.
So did you guys just have like, here's our climbing gear, here's all of our mountain bikes? You're a sponsored professional CrossFit athlete who's a podium finisher.
Yeah.
Did you have like weighted down with all the road gear in the back? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so I had, it was a full kit. So I had a Chevrolet 2500, HD with, the long bed so that we could fit a full rack in there, multiple barbells, sets of dumbbells, kettlebells, 320 pounds of plates, sleds, you name it, it was in the back of the truck. And yeah, every place that we would go, we'd either set up camp and stay for a little while or pull gear out as we needed it for training, and dropped into a lot of CrossFit gyms around the U.S. But there was also a lot of training happening in RV parks. So
I can only imagine the RV crowd sitting
yeah,
there with their Coors Lights and, smoking some grits, watching you guys be like, I don't want to know those guys. They're weird. They're
yeah,
just
no,
not right.
it was pretty funny. Like there were definitely the these RV courses. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have been in one, but they'll have little streets, if you will, and we'd be parked in ours, and there'd be a pull-up barbell rack set up, and I'd be running 400s or whatever, and there'd be people out there in lawn chairs, and like, "Woo, go get him!" So it was definitely an experience.
Oh yeah, I mean it's funny. Like when you have enough of the wheelhouse of any kind of good functional programming, you can be like, all right, today we're going to do this, or one, you had access to all the gear, but like I'll do that when I'm visiting, some nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles, stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, so what's your neighborhood layout look like? All right, I can do
Yes.
burpees in the driveway, and I can use that branch for pull-ups over there, and I'm going to go run the neighborhood. And every once in a while, you can tell, you can feel the looks coming at you from
Yes.
the neighbors, like.
It was not ideal. It was not ideal because I took second place the year before. I took 19th place in 2013. So my training definitely suffered. But I think I set out what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted to in the CrossFit Games by being on the podium. At that time, I think I was like 36 or 37, and I knew that like kind of my time was coming to a close. I wasn't recovering the same. I felt every year, every person that's competing against was 10 years younger than me. So it was just a matter of time. And I think doing that year was probably, it was really worth it because we did have sponsors. We did have, didn't need to work as much.
Right.
But it was a cool way to enjoy 12 months of training and traveling, and it was cool.
So I'm going to go back in time and jump around a little bit, but you're a full-time, you graduate from school,
Yeah.
you move to Denver, you are passionate about, the backcountry, getting in the mountains. I mean, from all aspects, climbing, biking, skiing. Did you set out to be a firefighter, like straight from school?
No. I graduated with a kind of IT related degree, and actually that's what I was doing in Winter Park. I worked for their IT department and just didn't enjoy that field. I just had no passion for it. So I was one of those guys that was going into work and just not really enjoying life in that respect. But around that time, I also started volunteering at the East Grand Fire Department, which is kind of covers that Newark Park Valley. And I just really enjoyed that. I was a resident, so I lived at one of the fire stations, and despite not really seeing a lot of fire, or they didn't even run medical calls, I just kind of knew that was a better choice for me, and didn't know anything about the pay, but I just knew that like my worst day firefighting was better than my best day at the IT department. So it was a pretty easy decision to just go get an EMT certificate, start applying, and see what this turned out to. And within about a year, I had everything under control and ready to apply to places, and I got everything out in 2007.
Oh, perfect. So I mean, you kind of rolled right into it, and then again, when it's passion led, IT, like you could have the perfect degree, perfect background, you could run it with your eyes closed, but if it just doesn't move the needle for you, like in your heart or anywhere, it's not going to last.
Yeah, especially, I mean, if you don't have any responsibilities, it's easier to pull that stuff off, like a career change. At the time, I mean, like I said, I didn't even have rent. I was living in a fire station. So it was pretty easy to make a decision like that, where you can kind of go little or no pay, or, whatever, and make a big life transition. Whereas if I had kids and a house, a mortgage and car payments and all that stuff, those decisions are tough to do. And I think, I have the luxury to make that change, whereas I think a lot of people, they don't. And it's one of those things where you get stuck in that job, and it can affect happiness, really.
Yeah, 100%. Which is something you've always kind of had programmed in. I mean, right down to the very start of going out to Colorado, spring break, being like, hey, these mountains are pretty fun. I think I'm gonna do this thing.
Yeah, they were
Wrap up that degree, go right for it. Like that's it. That idea of going for it and like letting your passions drive you is, I think, a central theme here that's pretty key.
Yeah, it's certainly it was nerve-wracking at times. And again, leaving the fire department for that time and moving into a Air Street, same thing. It was a risk. But I think the way that, my wife and I have kind of, led our relationship and the way that we've arranged things, it's always lended itself fairly well to doing things like that, where we can make these drastic decisions and life changes and see how it pans out. And, so far so good. And I think for the most part, that's the thing that I've learned from it is if you have passion for something, it'll work itself out, good, bad, or indifferent. And you're none the worse for it.
I got a question kind of adding to, because you've done that twice now. You went from IT to firefighting. You went from firefighting to full-time athlete. Like, was that second jump just as scary or less scary, or how was that?
No, that was definitely more scary because, at that time I had waited until I was fully vested in the fire department. And then I kind of had that time to make a decision of whether to stay at the fire department and continue trying to train for the CrossFit Games while being really tired and, on my days off and trying to get the most out of my training, or take the time off and see if I can make something happen at the 2012 CrossFit Games. And I asked for a leave of absence, and they actually, it got approved up a bunch of levels, and then at the chief level, it was denied. And it was like, yeah, what do you think? What do we do? Like, do we take a chance? Do we leave? Or do I just say, I got to stick with the safe thing that I have a retirement and benefits with? And, we got assurances from CrossFit Incorporated that, yeah, hey, we'll hire you to work as many seminars as you want to work. Again, I had the support of a couple really great sponsors at that time, and they really helped take care of me. So, I knew I could make ends meet, but it was whether or not I wanted to actually leave the fire department. And that was difficult because it's like a second family, and that was tough because, there's a loyalty thing, right? It's almost a little bit of a cult where it's like, you know what, we're not good enough for you,
You left one cult for another cult.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, there's another cult out there called CrossFit, so it sounds like you were just swapping cults.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a tough decision, but I'm glad I made it because, I probably wouldn't even be here talking to you guys if I hadn't taken second place in the CrossFit Games. It opened a lot of doors for the last bunch of years. So
Hands down, hands down. I mean, look at when were you introduced to CrossFit? Let's start with that because your foundation, your history in it, to some of us, is absolutely legendary. In terms of like if you've been following along with CrossFit's trajectory and history, but those early years were pretty scrappy in terms of awareness.
yeah, 2007. And like you said, it was real scrappy. There was, if you watched the 2007, there was one CrossFit Games, and it was a get together in Dave Castro's backyard. So I mean, like, it was the first one, so none of that stuff existed. Butterfly pull-ups weren't a thing. Muscle ups in a workout weren't a thing. All that stuff it's morphed into, a much higher level at this point. But I got introduced to it to try to get better for my firefighting career. And I found that I enjoyed it. Number one, it was super challenging. It fit my personality and my attention span really well. And, over the course of a year, I got better and better at it. So I decided to kind of, pursue that a bit more and go to class every single day, and signed up to go to the 2008 CrossFit Games, and got to meet people like Jason Kaliva and Chris Spieler and, guys that I looked up to, and just kind of took it from there and really just kind of dove in. And then in 2008, I was asked to be on the seminar staff, so I started teaching level ones late 2008. And really for the course of basically 13 years, was really heavily involved with CrossFit.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's again, I know from Nathan's standpoint, he'll have some thoughts on this, but there's a few names and personalities that jumped out. So I came into CrossFit and discovered it in 2008. There was a local gym in Encinitas, and Bub Glenn is who introduced me to it. He came home from a deployment and was like, "There's this website called CrossFit.com, and we do these workouts." And we were members at a local YMCA, so that's where we would practice learning the kipping pull up, and like we just looked like two total spazzes in a traditional YMCA. But then we found a local gym called Seal Fit. And it was maybe, 4 months later. And we're like, oh my God, there's a gym in Encinitas. Like, that's our hometown. We got to go there. Very quickly, the culture, being surrounded by a very small, tight-knit group, was infectious. And then the names of these professional athletes or these like folks performing at the highest level, they were on this website. And it was like CrossFit.com, post your times. And that was the measuring stick of how well you were doing. How civilian are you compared to these, elite athletes? And your name pops up in there. And then as the media kicks in over, 2009, 10, 11, 12, we're all watching. And all of a sudden you get people like Spieler, like Kalipa, like Froning, like yourself, Dan Bailey, like these folks that you're just like, you're locked in on who they are, like Chris Clever.
Yeah.
And like, you're just like, these are the studs of this sport that is so incredibly hard. It's so polarizing that you almost take a power from that, from how hard it is that your friends look at you like you're a Martian when you say that you're doing this. And you're just like, yeah, I'm taking pride in that. I actually want to do it more now because of that.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was cool to see that from the outside, because what you guys were doing, us mere mortals were, just it seemed like it was attainable, but you never could get there. But it was so cool to just feel like you were doing the same workouts and the same thing. It's not like you're ever going to play touch football with an NFL player. So that accessibility was awesome.
Yeah. It was pretty cool back in the day, like when the blog with the comments, was still in existence, or I guess it is still in existence, but it was used heavily. I was only posting my times for the days that I was at work. And I was able to do the workouts at work because, I was going to an affiliate where they had a different set of programming. So, I would do the same thing like you're saying, where I'd look, I'd type in my results, and then I'd scroll through it. I'd look to see, what Brett Marshall got, what OPT got, what Chris Spieler got. Like I said, there's just a number of names that you kind of scroll through. I had no idea who half those people were. But I knew that like Chris Spieler was going to destroy anything that was a bodyweight workout. And like, I remember seeing a Cindy score of like 32 or something like that. And I was like, man, who the heck is this guy? And, now that's commonplace, but back in the day, that was not. And I saw a Helen score of something like 658, and it was OPT. And it was like, all right. And then 2 days later, a video came out of it. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it gave us all something to shoot for, to realize that, what each of these things, what was possible. And I love the game of chasing the rabbit. And I think that's what, you see nowadays. They're on such an elite level that it's hard for the average Joe to do some of these workouts. And that's where there's a big separation, I feel like, now with CrossFit.com and all these athletes.
I couldn't agree more with that. It was a blessing and a curse. Snowboarding, skiing, they all went through the same thing where it was like there was a level of accessibility, and then all of a sudden, like the tricks got harder, the movements got harder, the gymnastics elements of it, and that separation became almost unrecognizable when you look at some of the sports at the absolute highest level. And CrossFit today, again, the blessing is that, hey, the methodology works, the training works.
Yeah.
Now you see it feels superhuman. You've got these kids that grew up in CrossFit through their whole lives, and they've just had it since they were preteens. And then by 22, 23, they're absolutely firing on all cylinders. And the volume of work that they're doing is just, next level.
Yeah. Like it's a blessing and a curse, because like it's one of those things where you watch it now, and it's just so overwhelming to even imagine being able to do some of that stuff. Like just the gymnastic stuff in the CrossFit Games alone over the last couple of years, where you're seeing, these handstand walks over obstacles and stuff like that. It's just like, holy gosh. I mean, like,
I'm waiting for the next one where you do a handstand walk, hold, reach into your pocket, grab a brush,
right.
comb your hair,
Yeah,
part it
yeah.
a certain way, put the part back in, then switch hands, pull the hair gel out on this side. I don't know. There's going to be some extra level. That could be my idea, my contribution.
Right.
Well, now I'm going to pivot off of CrossFit in a second, but I have to ask, because it's a very Bubs thing to ask, if you've ever done the Glenn Hero workout.
What is it? I was trying to think of it the other day. Would you know it offhand?
I do, because I'm absolutely married to having to do that workout at least 2 to 3 times a year, because anytime anyone ever talks about Glenn and we're at that gym, it's always like, hey, but we got to do the workout. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
So it's 30 ground overhead, clean and jerks for the most part at 135. So you warm up with the historic workout, Grace. And then you go on a 1 mile run. So that's to get your heart rate up a little bit if it wasn't already.
Yeah.
Then you do 10 rope climbs to full 15 feet. Then you do another 1 mile run. And then right when you think that you're absolutely done and ready to lie on the floor, you do 100 burpees to cash out.
Okay.
Which is like the mental, I'll call it the mental fuckery of that workout, because you have to finish with 100 burpees. And no matter what you're doing on your rope climb, they're coming.
Yeah.
They're waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that one. I think for a year we were trying to tick off every one of the hero workouts, which sounds easy, but there are so many hero workouts.
Yeah.
That it's a pretty lengthy endeavor to even consider, but every one of them's worth it. Every one of those, a testament to a person that gave it all. So
yeah, it's a shame that there are so many, and I also absolutely love that about that culture, that they want to honor the fallen, and they do it so well. I mean, I was stunned at the receptivity around Glenn passing, and because he was so active and loved CrossFit so much for all the same reasons that you identified, like the carrot, the stick, the idea of improving yourself and having measurable results. Like that's just super appealing to some of us.
Yeah. I mean, and back in the day when every time they would announce another hero workout, it would be the thing that everybody rally around and get done, even though it was not something they wanted to do. See it posted, and it's like, all right, here we go. Let's get this 45 to hour and a half grinder going.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what happens. Just see what happens. A little science experiment out there.
Yeah.
Hold on. I got one more, Sean. I got one final CrossFit question, because I heard this a long time ago. I've heard legend, Matt, that this is back when you were at an affiliate. You didn't own one yet. I think it was Front Range, where you would, on your off days of firefighting, you would go in and do the workout in the morning, go up the hill and ski all day, and then come back and work out again in the evenings. Is that true?
I think usually I would ski in the morning and just come in the evening, but yeah.
Okay. I heard they're like, yeah, this guy's working out, going skiing all day, and then coming back and working out again. He's an animal.
There were days, they were the only gym that I knew at the time that would have weightlifting classes, and then they would also have the typical CrossFit conditioning class.
Yeah.
And I would, if they had a weightlifting class, I would do that. I would go in, I'd do the weightlifting class, I'd do hill skiing or climbing or whatever, running, and then come back and do, whatever conditioning it was for the end of the day. And I think, there was something to that volume training that really helped me out a lot early on, that when I would go to the CrossFit Games, it was not that hard. 2008, 2009, 2010, it was just all right, it's a lot, but I mean, this is kind of what I do, so.
All right, that's, what, we're going to actually say that Matt's wrong. And what Matt did was he would do a 6 a.m. class, 5 a.m., then rally out to the hill, ski all day, come back and do the second class. So, Nathan, stick with your version of it. It sounds that much gnarlier.
I'll cut that together for when we post it on Instagram. Yeah.
So then you kind of wind down that part of competing. Some of your sponsors are still with you today. I mean, you still work with Rogue,
Yeah.
which is amazing. Like, I love what those guys stand for. Katie and Bill, I don't know them well. We've only met a handful of times, but the integrity that they stand for and like the folks that they really get behind,
Yeah.
Spieler, yourself, Kalipa, like, you guys all come to mind of these long-term relationships. Was it hard to transition out and then go back into firefighting, or did you kind of do them in tandem?
It was, I come to identify so closely with kind of the athlete role that it did feel a little bit of a letdown. And that maybe, there's that blow to your ego where you're like, I'm no longer part of this. And it did affect me. But I would say that, once I got by that, it really, I know I made the right decision for myself, for my health, for my longevity, to not continue to train the way I was, because I was just always nursing a fairly catastrophic injury, whether it was knee or back or shoulders. And I just knew it was time. So, when I made the decision to go back to the firehouse, I went all in, and it felt really good to go back to the family, to work really hard to get all my skills up to date. And, it's a service industry, and I think that's where I belong, because, I have a much better attitude about that than I had in the past when I was just splitting myself 10 different ways. And, even though I go to work now and they're really hard, we call them sets, basically pairs of bays together. I love what I do, and we get to help the people of Leadville and North Glen on a daily basis, or as well as some surrounding areas. And I can go home at the end of a long work week and know that I gave my all, and was with a bunch of guys that tried real hard, and come home and recover and get to be with the family for 4 days. So yeah.
I mean, that's epic. Now, are you fighting fires? Like, when the calls come in, are you part of the responding crew? Are you in more of like at the station role? What's your daily like on that?
Yeah, no, I'm a firefighter, so I respond on the fire engine. So we generally go on mostly medical calls. About 75 to 80% of our annual call volume is medical related. Like the other 15 to 20% are generally fires, car accidents, or other strange disasters.
Yeah.
And it's something it's always different. There's no predictable situation that we're ever in. So we kind of practice a little bit of everything, and it kind of matches up well with, like, CrossFit and my ADHD. It works well. So
You're constantly varied, varied. I trust me, I resemble that. There's a lot of squirrels floating around out there, and so it's good to be able to pin it down with that single task of like, hey, we're responding to this situation, but then tomorrow's situation is going to be totally different. But you're equipped with the skill set to manage both. That's awesome. I thought you were, but I was like, I wonder like what role you have, because there is somewhat of a celebrity nature that we're going to drill into in a little bit here. It's coming, but I was just curious if that would prevent you, or if the fire department would have you in more of a role that would be more public facing. But it sounds like you're doing the job, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, no. I just the term that we use is I ride backwards, so that means I'm in the back seat of the firefighter. But in most engine companies, when I'm assigned to them,
Yep.
But yeah, it's daily routine, and you can call them 911. They really don't know who I am, so it doesn't really matter.
Unless they happen to be big fans of a short-lived yet very entertaining television program on national TV owned by The Rock called The Titan Games.
Yep, that's true. And that has happened a couple times. But
So I got to ask, how the hell did you just decide to be like, you know what? I look really good in spandex. I'm going for it.
Yeah, lazy night watching TV, and I was watching season 1 of the Titan Games, and at the end of one of the episodes, they said that if you'd like to become a contestant on the Titan Games, submit a video at NBC.com. So I did, and probably about 8 months later, heard from them saying, "Hey, we're having tryouts. We'd love to have you out. We'd like to do an interview with a couple of our producers first to check for the right fit, and then we'll fly out to LA, where we're going to have basically a combine." And participated in all that and got turned down initially. Told I was going to be put on the alternate list, and one of the guys that was going injured himself and wasn't able to participate. So I got that call late in the game and decided to go out.
That is absolutely amazing. So you're like watching TV, you see in season 1, you're like, huh, I could do that.
Yeah,
like,
there was a
all
gal.
those skills.
There's a gal, Jessica. I think it's. I forget what her last name is. I'm forgetting. But she's a CrossFit athlete that was on season 1, and that's kind of why I was tuning in, was to see how she did.
Nice.
And after watching her performance, I was like, yeah, I think this is something I'd like to do. It looks like fun. And luckily enough, I got to basically behind the scenes. Almost all those people were CrossFitters on the second season. It's like they never use the word CrossFit because they didn't want to promote any one, way of training.
They didn't want to get sued.
They didn't want to, which is, obvious that CrossFit likes to sue people. So,
At that time, they would have been doing more to promote it than what CrossFit was doing, though.
God, yeah, you're right. But yeah, I mean, you got Margot Alvarez, Danny Spiegel, Kareem Benson. There's a whole bunch of great people that were involved in that were also involved in CrossFit, and felt like just another CrossFit competition.
That's awesome. And so the whole experience, like, did you fly out there? I mean, I remember talking to you afterwards, and you'd already won, but you were like sworn to secrecy, and I wasn't nudging, I wasn't poking, but I was like, so like, how'd it go? And you're like, you'll see.
Yeah.
But were you out there for like weeks at a time? Like you had to take another leave away from work, or just burn your vacation days? How did that?
Yeah, I took a bunch of trades, and I used a bunch of vacation time, and I think I was out there for 3 weeks straight. Basically did 1 full week of media, and then I think at least it was 2 weeks, about 10 days of shooting. And the way they can get it was you basically go to the set, whether you're meeting that day or not, and then wait throughout the day. It's funny, like they had a studio audience, so there was ever Gabe to be there, I think, and clap when they were supposed to clap and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, we would just be kind of on call waiting for The Rock to arrive on set. And when he would arrive, it's like, okay, everybody, go, you're up. And it's like, all right. And that would be it. And we would just kind of get going. And, it was pretty cool. The events themselves were certainly not staged. Every one of them went down full throttle, full compete mode. And, what was interesting is a few of the events, they shortened what you see on TV from what the duration of the event. So there was one of myself and Bartley Weaver where we're pushing a wall back and forth on an elevated platform, and that thing lasted like 25 minutes, and I think they showed like 3 minutes.
Yeah. So
So
they're probably like, oh man, this is a grudge match. Like this one's going the distance.
yeah, there was probably a good 15 minutes there where we went back and forth with over a matter of inches, just pushing as hard as we could. So it was pretty cool, man. It was a cool experience, and the closer and closer I got, the more fired up I got. So once we hit that kind of last 3 people, I really wanted to win it, and luckily it worked out that way.
Oh, it sure did. I mean, fuel for the fire. I just remember me like hitting you up after like the show came out, it was official that you'd won. I'm just like, man, good poker face. You really held on to that one. I'm sure they had you under a very strict NDA not to announce anything.
Yeah. They told you no prize money if you say anything. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you want that prize money. So, and you got to meet The Rock, and by all accounts, he seems like a pretty down to earth guy.
That's how I describe it. There was very limited exposure, but every time, we would be with him, he was always approachable. He had something nice to say every single time. And Country Strong, Will Sutton, he was our entertainment. So it was always, what is Will gonna say to The Rock when we see him next? Because, like for example, one time we're sitting there and we're standing there behind the stage. It's me, Will, and another competitor. We're standing there, and he goes, "Hey, Rock, you like to fish?" And he said, "Did you say fish?" It's the way you would expect the Rock to respond. And yeah, it was great.
That's amazing. And also, like, got asked if season 3 comes around, you go back.
Yeah, I mean, they ask. I think I'm a bit older, probably a little more fragile, but outside of that, yeah.
I mean, maybe they break it into age divisions. You're gonna mop up the joint, but no, they got to throw you up against those 20-year-old kids.
Yeah.
So on the idea of splitting your time, obviously that's a really cool chapter, and there's that moment around that when that was just like all encompassing, and like everyone's like, "Holy crap, that's amazing!" Then life settles down. You go back to the firehouse. I'm sure you got to put up with your buddies giving you a bunch of grief over it because they're all really proud of you.
Oh, yeah.
But somewhere in there, you started the concept of Train for the Win.
Yeah. 2000.
I'd love to hear about that.
I think we came up with the idea in like 2016 and implemented it in 2017. And we initially, I had a partner in the business, and we initially started doing it as a competitive CrossFit competitor program. Basically, we were traveling around teaching the actual CrossFit competitor seminar, and we just done so many competitions and knew how to train for it that we thought we'd pass along what we knew. And it really, for a long time, that's what we did. And it kind of lost our interest because, A, I wasn't competing anymore, neither was my partner, Eric. And B, we saw, a place for a program that made some improvements onto what we thought the CrossFit methodology was lacking. So that's what the Trade for the Win program looks like now. Is, I don't want to use the word longevity because it's like a kind of a buzzword that everybody throws into a sentence about their training program.
I don't know. As someone who's in their 40s and a guy over here in his 50s, I would say it's absolutely in our it's in our thinking. It's certainly in our actions.
Exactly.
But yes, it's a total buzzword, but it's like, hey, like, how do you preserve yourself so you can get up tomorrow and go have a great day?
Right. And, just as an example, like, I think a lot of anaerobic training is great for anaerobic efforts. And where I feel like CrossFit needs to be balanced out is on the aerobic side. Everything's done for time. If you constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity, that's the definition of CrossFit. That last part, I don't necessarily agree with. Everything doesn't need to be high intensity to have value. And if you look at our program, I think a lot of people are surprised by the amount of work throughout the week that develops your aerobic abilities, where the intended stimulus is not to go hard. It's actually to limit yourself to a conversational pace as you exercise using functional movements. And I think, over the last bunch of years of training like that, not only does it make me better at recreational sports that are largely aerobic, right? But also, I don't feel so banged up all the time. My concerns with my doctor telling me I have an enlarged heart is not as big of a concern. I mean, when your heart is working as hard as it is on a regular basis doing anaerobic efforts, hypertrophy of the heart is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a healthy thing. So, like, that's what our program aims to do, is really balance out the methodology of CrossFit with what we know creates, again, here's your buzzword, the opportunity for longevity.
Well, you want to stay in it. Like, how many, when you were a gym owner, Nathan's a gym owner, I've coached at gyms in years past, the attrition and the fall off is so noted. It's like some people come in and they get a taste of it, they love it, but a year in, they're stressed out, burned out, and they flame out. Or certainly several years in. How do you create a lifelong relationship with fitness that isn't just like, I'm going to go do this now, or Orange Theory and F45 and this? What you're talking about is really appealing because you don't have to redline every single time you set foot in the door of the gym.
Yeah. But unfortunately, here's the thing. Those workouts, not only do they have value, high intensity workouts that are varied in duration and exercises, not only do they have value, but they also are, there's a sense of that variance adding to the entertainment, if you will, to CrossFit, to exercising in general. And I love that part of it. Variance is what pulls most people back on a regular basis, that every day is not exactly the same thing. But when things get boring, that's where people have a hard time exercising. So for example, we do run workouts once a week, and the run workout is not go run, interval sprints. It's run slow at various intervals and keep your heart rate low. And people get bored by that stuff, so they want to see those entertaining 3 rounds for time with heavy weights and complex movements. So I get that part of it, but I think Train for the Win, what we find is that just because I see the signups come through in email on a regular basis, I recognize the names signing up again and again and again and again and again. And it's like, what in the hell is happening? And most of these people, when you talk to them about why they're signing up multiple times, is that they've left because they thought they weren't getting what they wanted. And then they come back because they're like, you know what? I never felt better than when I was doing Train for the Win. And that's really a testament to our program. Could we make it better and make it more entertaining and make it so that we have more subscribers? Yes. But I wouldn't want to do that fucking program. And part of Train for the Win is that is my program. That is what I do on a daily basis every single week. So I'm writing the program for me and I'm sharing it with everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, it's great because like literally what you're talking about, for the win. Well, on the surface, people can look at that and say, oh yeah, I got to win my next competition. But it's like, no. We're winning at life.
Yeah.
This is a longevity play. I mean, like, look, it's a buzzword, but I hope it never goes away because quite frankly, like if you're once you're out of your 20s, you've got a window in your 30s, professionally, but somewhere in there, there's a switch that gets flicked and you start thinking about the long game. Yeah. And I don't mean like mortality. I just mean like moving well and feeling well. And I mean, my story, like I was a professional snowboarder for a long time. I beat the crap out of my body, and CrossFit really brought me around and riding bikes and surfing and mountain biking and just the general aerobic exercise and anaerobic stuff that allowed me to snowboard and hold at a high level because I never want to lose that. But somewhere along the way, when you do the CrossFit Open and then you're in there doing that methodology, like, and you're smashed for 3, 4, 5 days afterwards, you're like, well, I did a CrossFit workout, so now I can't surf. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. And I think people understand that. And, I love CrossFit for the off season, especially. Like whatever your season is, like if you're a mountain biker, it's great to get in there and do, an affiliate program and get that high level of fitness that's both balanced with aerobic and anaerobic stuff. It's hard to top that for off-season training and then transition into your season in the spring. And I agree with you. That sense of kind of how accessible fitness is in an hour session or hour and a half session in the gym becomes something where you take it for granted and you want to only do that. And I think a lot of people have that happen. They're like, shit, man, I look good. I can lift a lot of weight and I'm just going to do this instead of doing, out into the wilderness and doing some fun things because it's easy. It's accessible.
It's accessible. Yeah. And the fun stuff is that, like, literally, I'm coming off a very heroic day of being with my friends in the mountains with, over a foot of fresh snow and ideal conditions. And like, I would hate if I was riding up a chairlift with a bunch of guys frothing to get into some fresh snow. They're boot packing right up a ridge, and I'm the ankle weight, like I couldn't keep up. I
Right.
wouldn't want that. And I'm lucky to have access to the training that allows for when those moments come, you're ready for them. And whatever those moments are, like, hey, if I fly out to Denver and you and I go on a mountain bike ride, I don't want to be the guy lagging behind so much that you're bored and going like, well, that's no fun. Like, you want to show up and represent and just have a good time with whatever the chosen activity is. And I think CrossFit, I agree with you 100%. It fits into that. There's just a lot more to that world of programming when you want to stay in it for a long, long time. And that's what I'm interested in. I know a lot of the world's going to really resonate with that. So where do folks find Train for the Win? Do they just follow you on social, or is it got its own website where you just sign up behind a paywall? How does that work?
Yeah. So it's trainftw.com. You can get access to the program through that site. You can check out train_FTW's Instagram account. We try to post a lot of stuff that, not only is entertaining, but also of value there about movement, that you can incorporate into your own program. And then our YouTube channel's fantastic. It's got 2,000 videos, all movement based. None of it is just a bunch of fluff, entertainment stuff, which I know, again, it's something that I know we could do better with, is building up a bunch of entertainment videos, but we're trying to keep to ourselves and really try to add value to people's exercise and to their life. So we keep it limited to that so far. But we talked about kind of jumping into some of the other stuff, like backcountry stuff, like the tactical games, like a bunch of stuff that I'm interested in right now. Because people have told me like, yeah, I kind of want to know more about that. I want to know more about that. Like, how you do that,
Yeah.
how you incorporate that. So it's on the list.
You know what? I see a world where the tactical games gets tackled. I'm personally fascinated by that. Total Archery Challenge would be an interesting one. Deep End Fitness. I mean, we have a working relationship with those guys, but what they're doing underwater in the pool, talk about mental meeting physical.
Yeah,
be some neat stuff there. So in terms of goals now, like kind of like you've accomplished so much in the fitness space, getting out in the woods, getting outdoors, and in your career, do you have is there a future goal we should know about? Like, is there something big cooking around the corner?
Yeah, so I keep a list on my phone just called Big Adventures, and I try to keep that thing always rotating with something on the list. This year's a bike year. Been having knee problems the last couple of years, so decided to not do any more running, not do any sort of anything that's going to stress my knee terribly, which generally impact running does it. So this year I'm doing the Leadville. And I want to thank Bubs for supporting me on that. Thank you. But yeah, I'm doing the Leadville 100 for the second time. I did it in 2019, and I'm doing it again on the Mayhem team this year. So
Wait, is Rory coming out for this one?
Good question. You'll have to ask him. He said that basically every time that Rich vacates Cokeville, that he's got to take over, so he's not able to make it. Stuff. Well, who knows? Who knows? If somebody calls in sick and isn't able to make it, maybe he gets the nod.
Look, at First Alternate has paid off before.
Yeah.
It could pay off again.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been training for that since November, and I have two kind of training rides. One's called the Bailey Hundo, coming up in June, and then I'm doing the Silver Rush 50, which is a 50-mile ride that's actually, they say, harder than the trail system in the Leadville. Both are in Leadville, so.
Oh wow! All right. And does Sharif play a support role in this, or does she just pack you up with a couple water bottles and say, "I'll see you when you're done"?
She's done it, hasn't she?
She has. She did great. She did 2022, and she completed it. So this year she's gonna return the favor. I crewed for her. She's gonna crew for me, and I think we have that whole situation kind of, down pat. So it's good to know that she's in my corner and going to be patching tires and feeding the beast. So
that's awesome, man. Well, I mean, we're psyched to support that initiative and be a part of it and like see you rally that cause. That's going to be a phenomenal experience. I mean, the Leadville 100 is just absolutely legendary as far as a race and a feat goes.
Yeah, so I mean, big other things that I think I think it's cool for people to hear these things because I think it's like, where do you get ideas from, right? I know Rich did the Leadville last year. Probably 5% of CrossFitters have ever even heard of the Leadville.
Yeah.
And he just exposed a bunch of them to bike racing, and that's so cool. So Sheree and I have something planned for 2025, which I'm extremely excited about. We're going to go out to the Dolomites and we're going to do something called Alta Via 2, which is a trail system that works through the Dolomites for about 120 miles. And there's 2 Via Ferratas along the way.
Yes.
And it's done over, most people take, about 12 to 14 days to complete it. Some people that like trail running can complete it in 4 days. So we're gonna try to mix up the two, maybe take somewhere between 8 and 12 days, maybe 14. We'll see. And I'm really excited about that. But that'll be 2025. It just takes a lot of planning with all the huts and everything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, especially and again, you're aiming for your days, which means you're planning your huts around that, which
Exactly.
you want to hit those goals. And for those who don't know, you definitely want to Google Via Ferrata as a very accessible way to scare the living shit out of yourself, and get up in the mountains because you're carabinered in. You're not, nothing bad's going to happen unless you're absolutely not paying attention.
Yeah,
but you're in the
it's almost-
Dolomites.
It is, and man, if you have the chance, just Google Alta Via and the number 2, and you'll see a bunch of YouTube videos of people hiking it, and it is unbelievably gorgeous. So, you add in a couple thrill days where you're doing the Via Ferrata stuff, and it's just, I mean, it looks like the ultimate adventure.
It absolutely does. I'm so excited for you to be able to do that. Like those who know. If you don't, look it up. Same thing with Leadville. I mean, these are 2 amazing tasks. I somehow knew that you were going to have, I knew about Leadville, obviously, but I knew there'd be something else. It's like, oh yeah, then we're doing this. We're going to Italy. It's going to be epic.
Yeah. The only other thing is the tactical games. I'm actually going to San Antonio area next weekend to do my first tactical games, which has been a long lead up. I've been kind of practicing and acquiring equipment to do my first one for, about 5 months. And
Okay.
yeah, I feel pretty good about shooting now, and we'll see if I can mix the fitness and the shooting and do well. So
There'll be some stress. It's a really, I don't know that experience. I worked at SealFit on and off for 5 years, and there was an extension off of SealFit called Turning Steel, and there were these camps run in Montana, and I was lucky enough to go to one of them and help support it. And it was basically a bunch of folks that were just dying to have that kind of shooting fitness experience.
yeah,
And some of the challenges that were in there were just next level. And then, then there's firearms involved, safety, but you want to add a little physical stress and then have to hit a target. And, like if you don't hit the target, there's penalties.
yeah.
Like it'll get you going. I look forward to that experience. I think I got a feeling you're going to do pretty well there. That one seems like it's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I like the gear. I'm a gearhead, so like the fact that you could collect a bunch of cool gear, and I like firearms too, obviously, but I didn't own an AR-15 platform rifle, so that's completely new to me. And like you said, just the clearing sequence is something that like I've had to practice. Like, when you're done shooting before you go do more fitness stuff, being safe and having the same clearing sequence kind of drilled into your head so that it becomes natural and fast.
You got it. Yeah. And like all the rules about posture and holding your weapon, and like
Totally different.
Yeah. Don't wave it around. Like there's some stuff that you wouldn't necessarily, if you don't have the training, how would you know? You see stuff in the movies. Once you actually get into the training, there's like, there's a whole bunch of safety protocols.
Oh, yeah. And
before that thing ever gets around your waist or over your shoulder or wherever you're holding it, like before you even get started, it's great.
Yeah. It's not standing at a range, which is what I was, used to. Like, getting ready for hunting season is, go out to a 100 or 200-yard range and lay prone and shoot,
Yeah.
and or sit at a table and shoot. And this is not that. So there's a whole lot of, now that I'm running from place to place, keeping your muzzle pointed down, downrange, and making sure that there's not one in the chamber as you're running around, all that stuff. It's new to me, but I'm really excited about the competition and my partner. I'm partnered up with the founder of the tactical games, Nick Thayer. So at least I know I'm in good hands with him. He knows what
Don't
to.
make me look bad, Matt. Don't you make me look bad.
It's interesting how many like former like bigger name CrossFitters are getting into the tactical games. Like I know we interviewed Kalipa a while ago. Like I know he's training for it. Margo Alvarez, like Jacob Hepner won it. Like just what do you think the draw is there?
I think it's like the outdoors. It's like, it's it's a different way to express yourself physically, and take two things that aren't related, that a lot of people have interest in both things, and kind of weld them together and see how you do at a sport. And to me, I love the idea. Like I said, I'm the gearhead, so like the opportunity to, buy new gear and use it for a sport is really cool to me. And I think the other part of it is, it's just everybody wants something to train for, whether that is an outdoor recreation opportunity or whether that is a competition that has an end date. People want to, guide their training towards something. And that's something that, like, Train for the Win that we do, that I think that's what has kept me working out every day for 30 years, with, small gaps in here and there, is that I have a goal that's generally, 8 to 12 weeks out. And I train for that one goal. And then when that goal, I've either met it, or like it was some sort of recreational opportunity, I've already done it. Well, then it's time to move on to a different goal. And the best personal trainers in the world will tell you, how do you keep the same clients year after year after year after year? They set different goals for them. And I think the tactical games for me fits into that. Is, I might not do more than one or two of these a year, but when they come around, I'll be training for it.
Nice. I mean, you just nailed, like, how do you keep people engaged? Give them new goals. Like, hey, you've done this, cool. We're going to pivot to the next one. Like we signed up to be partners with two events this year that we thought were pretty compelling. One is the 29-0-29 challenges. And so we'll be providing, the electrolytes and collagen for everyone to summit Mount Everest. And they'll be doing it at ski resorts all around North America. And just the idea of that as a mental challenge. I mean, this is an event that it sells out in the first hour when the tickets become available, and it's, almost cultish, but that goal of being able to do that in the allotted time period is just, I love that idea of training up for something like that. And then of course, the deep end fitness experience is, hey, we're going to take regular fitness and we're going to put it in a pool and we're going to make you incredibly uncomfortable, but man, you're going to see what you're made of.
Yeah, a lot of people's misogi, or however you say that word, like
misogi, yeah.
It's the same concept, like, and I think, doing the, did you say it was 29-20?
29-0-29. So it's meant to simulate the 29,029 feet height of Mount Everest above, sea level. So you're basically climbing that distance. You climb up a ski resort, take a lift down, climb back up, take a lift down, climb back up, and you just, you're on this rotation for a day and a half or a day, however long it takes.
Right, it's a sufferfest, and
total suck fest.
If you don't train for something like that at all, the likelihood that you're going to fail or have to drop out is very high. And I think that misogi idea is that, no, I'm not going to go in with failure in mind. I'm going to go in trained, ready to do this thing, but failure could happen. And those things, those big events that I've participated in throughout my life have been the most rewarding, failure or not, because it's the thing that when you try real hard, you cement memories into your head. And those people that you're with, you've also welded those relationships to be something that you'll never ever forget, or, at the very least, you'll want to forget them, it seems like, but most of the time, um, those are the moments of life, and sometimes you're not who you want to be in those moments. And I can think of plenty of times on big events like that where I'm not proud of who I was, but I always learned something. And
Yeah.
one of those a year is going to make every person a better person.
Hands down. Hands
Yeah.
down. I couldn't agree more. Those are good words to live by. And you're absolutely right. Like, you get challenged. Sometimes it brings out the worst in you. But if you learn from that, and then the next experience comes up and you remember that as a data set, and you go, okay, now I'm going to do it differently. Now I'm going to level up. Now I'm going to be that anchor for somebody else, or I'm going to be there for them and help the group lift, or, I'm going to push over this hill, whatever that challenge is. That's amazing. Well, I know Nathan has one final question that I'm not going to steal from him.
Oh. I threw this on there yeah, I can ask it. Do you know how many tattoos you have?
That's funny. I had to, a while back, I applied for the Denver Fire Department, and that was one of the questions on their application. How many tattoos do you have, and what are their meanings? And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God.
Like, this part of my arm means this part of my leg means this.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot. It's a lot of tattoos, and I've only got a couple spaces left. So I'm actually trying to fill them this year. So a lot.
That's always one of my, like, just people, like, I know, guys, go check out Matt's Instagram and, like, you'll see, but it's how many tattoos you have? Like, I don't know, my arm is full, like, how many sessions? Like, it's always funny to me. So
yeah, I love the culture of tattoos, specifically like Japanese and American traditional tattoos. So people you get to meet, the areas you get to travel to, to get these tattoos is always been something that I've loved doing. And like, for example, every year I go to San Francisco at least once a year to get tattooed, and look up Paul Doleman. You guys will love his tattoos. It's just, not only is he a great tattoo artist, he's an amazing person, and pleasure to be around. So, like, he's one of the reasons, like, why I travel for tattoos. So yeah.
Not bad. Well, dude, thank you so much for taking the time today, sharing some of your history, future goals, and the entire approach on Train for the Win. I think that is a key takeaway for folks all around. I am definitely going to be looking up Paul Doleman because I already know. I mean, I've been a fan of, like, the Tim Hendricks style of tattoo for a while, and
Yes,
I know they're cut from the same cloth there.
exactly.
I think Nathan has a little outro, but again, before we sign off, I just wanted to thank you because you definitely added some really good inspiration to this. I'm a little bit fired up to train more now. And I didn't think I needed any because I just got done with some epic POW, but now that's it. I'm training this afternoon.
Let's go. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned Train for the Win. Real quick, just where can people find you? Where can they find Train for the Win?
That one channel on Instagram, and train_FTW for Train for the Win. And again, take a look at the Train for the Win YouTube page. It's a valuable resource for most that see it. So
Cool. Sweet. Anything else you want to throw out there? Or?
no, thanks for having me on. I love talking to you guys, and it's been a while, so I'm glad we could catch up.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, as always, guys, thanks for listening. You can find the Cult of Recreationalism on all podcasting services. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube or our social media. Just look up Bubs Naturals and you will find us. And leave us a thumbs up or a 5-star review or whatever platform you're on. Any of the positive stuff helps and gets us in front of more people. So awesome. Well, thanks, Matt.